That's what life's all about, isn't it? We enjoy life and not endure it.
Welcome to the Conditions for Recovery podcast. I'm George, a specialist pain physiotherapist. In this podcast, we share stories of hope and improvement from real people who have found a way forward, helping you to counteract narratives of inevitable decline. Today's guest is Pete Moore. He has lived with persistent pain for nearly 4 decades. He reached his lowest point when he was considering taking his own life. One morning, he was looking in the mirror while having a shave. He decided something needed to change, and it was himself. He started a back pain support group so he could hopefully learn from others. He attended an input pain management program 30 years ago, which provided him with lifelong skills, but more importantly, the confidence to manage his pain himself. Since then, he has become a global ambassador for pain self-management. His Pain Toolkit supports people to engage with self-management and also educate healthcare providers. I've known of Pete for a lot of years, and I'm really pleased to have him on the show. Hi, Pete. How's it going?
George, good, mate. What's happening, man?
Everything's really good here. Really pleased to have you on. Pleased to have you on the week that Arsenal have won the Premier League.
Well, George, thanks for
Perfect
inviting
timing.
me, mate. I've been looking forward to this for quite a few weeks, actually. I know we were talking about it a month or so ago, but I was a little bit super busy with one of my conferences, So anyway, thanks for inviting. Appreciate it.
Brilliant. I'm really looking forward to it. So I've obviously done a bit of an intro, but it would be really great to get a bit more of your story straight from you. So could you share a bit more about how you've experienced things over the last 4 decades?
Yeah, well, George, I'm pretty much like most people living with long-term pain. I had all the experience sort of back pain over the years during my late teenage years, but it became persistent pain. Not in a nutshell, I was when it all went a bit bonkers. I was back in the day, I was painting decorator and I was painting a house opposite Windsor Castle. This is where I got a connection with royalty, because the day me back became really dodgy was when the castle went up in smoke. I didn't have to say, I didn't nothing to do with that. I couldn't get out of bed the next day and saw the GP. So I got back then, well, they still call it a medical model now, but I was pretty much captured by the medical model. Then it was just take pills and rest and whatnot, And but as I found out, just popping pills and doing nothing really was probably causing more problems than most. Well, I should have been doing really. I should have been keeping moving, etc. But that was back in the early mid-90s, and persistent pain self-management really wasn't on anybody's agenda. So anyway, for a couple of years, about a year and a bit, nearly 2 years, I suppose, I was sort of backwards and forwards to the GP, and I got on the old, what I call the NHS roundabout, seeing physiotherapy. Spent about £8,000 on seeing various therapists, anybody with an histopathology. I went and saw them, and I did about £8,000 on that. A waste of money, really, for me anyway. So as it said in your intro, I was having a shave one morning, and I was having a really bad moment. I was in a bad space, and I was having a shave just before I had my whiskers, I think. I had a little bit of more hair then as well. I looked at myself in the mirror, and I said to myself, "You're the bloke that's going to get me out of this mess." Little was, and I had to take action myself, really. And I always remember of someone telling me about a little saying. It said, "If you want to learn something, teach it." So, I couldn't teach anything because I didn't really know anything. All I knew was to see the GP and go to hospital appointments and whatnot. But what I knew that for another health condition, I had to be around people like me. And the only way I could really do that was to start up a back pain support group, which I did in a place called Hornchurch, which is in Essex. And so what I did, I didn't know I had to advertise for it. I found a little hall, and someone had shown me how to do an advert for the local newspaper. Anyway, the phone rang off the hook, and on the very first meeting, it was Ramo. I mean, Castle Ben Hur turned up, people just like me. I thought, this is just what I want. So we was all stuck, really. We was all stuck in that medical model and bouncing around the system. But someone told me about the about a woman in Norfolk who'd been on a program called the Input Program in London. Back then, George, this is where we are now with technology, man. This is Captain Kirk stuff, like, you know. But back then, there was no computers, weren't around, and so if I had to contact anybody, I had to phone them up or write them a letter. So anyway, so I phoned up, I wrote to this lady in Norfolk, and she told me about Input. And then I wrote to Input asking if someone could come down and do a talk to the group. Anyway, a nice lady come down from London called Amanda Williams. She was the clinical psychologist on the program, and she spoke to the group about what they do at Input, and she was ticking all the boxes. She was say, well, when you come on the program, you'll be able to learn pacing, how to pace your daily activity, so you can do more throughout the day without increasing your pain or your symptoms. And I'm going, what? Yeah, I'll have some of that. Yeah. So anyway, that was in '94, and but like any NHS program, you have to wait a bit. So I had to wait 18 months to get on the program. So anyway, I went on the program in July of '96. I get this, I always remember it because it was the European finals were on. We were getting beat by the Germans again. But yeah, anyway, the program was great. It was an inpatient program. You went there on a Sunday and you went home. It was a 2 weeks. You went on a Sunday. The program started on a Monday went from Monday through Thursday night, and you did that for 2 weeks. And that's the program was exactly what I needed. What the program gave me was not only the tools and skills, but it gave me the confidence to manage my pain myself. So listen, it wasn't like fairy dust, sprinkle fairy dust. Pain self-management is a doing thing. You had to do something. So I had to do regular stretching, exercise, and pacing my daily activities, etc., etc. I'm pleased to say that a year after leaving the program, I was able to quit taking pain medication. And I know a lot of people find this hard to believe, but I've not taken any pain medication at all since '97. And that's all through down to that program, really. And also, I think the other benefits of going on that program was that when I got all these self-management skills, they've come in handy as I've become an older person now. And as you know, when you become an older person, you'll find this out when you get older, George, you start collecting other health conditions. So they've come in handy as I've become older, and I've got arthritis and various parts of my body. And 10 years ago, I was diagnosed with prostate cancer. So I still use all those skills I learned in '96. All been transferable to help me with my health conditions over these 30 years now, I guess, So from the back pain going on on that program, people say to me, well, how much pain are you in now? Well, I'll get pains, but that ain't sort of what I'll call bonkers pain. Like, it doesn't stop me from doing stuff. But I've got to play the game. Like, every morning I stretch and exercise, and I'm lucky enough I got a local gym, which is nice down there, and I pop down there Monday through Friday, and I've got into yoga and doing Tai Chi and stuff like that. I find it, I don't really call it exercise. I call it meaningful movement. So in other words, I do movements that I enjoy doing, and I found that if I find a movement that I enjoy doing, which is like Tai Chi, yoga, and general sort of stretching stuff and whatnot, walking, I like going out and me walking, and so I find that all that stuff there keeps my pain levels down, really, So to me, meaningful movement is like medicine, really. So for the last 30 years, I've been promoting, as you say, pain supported self-management. It's took me all around the world. Where I've done spoke at many conferences like in the UK here, and Australia, New Zealand, America. I've never been to Canada yet. I'd like to go to Canada. Yeah, it's been a bit of a wild journey, but I still enjoy it. But the travelling bit now is a bit tiresome, really. The medication I take for my cancer causes a lot of fatigue, so I do a lot of work now. I'm doing a lot via Zoom, so I work with a good buddy of mine over there in Canada who's just like me. I call him my brother, really, because in actual fact, he's had pain longer than me, a guy called Keith Meldrum. I think you've interviewed him in your George, I think. But we do conferences together, and so every February we do a pain conference for not only just people living with pain, but also healthcare professionals as well. But we started doing other ones last year, April just gone. We done the first one for people with long-term conditions, and in November this year we're going to be doing one for people living with cancer. So that keeps me out of trouble. I say it's been an interesting journey, but I'm still on the journey, and no 2 days are the same. Helping other people, as people were there for me back in the day to support me, I feel like I need to pass on these messages to other people that are struggling, So that's really pretty much where I am at the moment, George.
Thanks for sharing that, Pete. And there's a few things in it that I think are really worth revisiting. But I think the thing that jumps out at me the most is I'm seeing quite a lot of stuff at the moment on things like TikTok and LinkedIn, which are really dismissive of an awful lot of the things that you've just mentioned, because you've had such a clear success. It doesn't mean that you're 100%. As you say, you still have to play the game. You still have to do the things, and you still have to keep those habits and changes in your behavior every day, because otherwise it doesn't help as much. But what do you think meant that you were so able? One of the things that I thought is, you said somebody came down from input to your support group. How many people from the support group roughly would you say went on to do input, or was it you and maybe a couple of others? And then also, are there reasons that you think that you were so in the right place to take on board these messages and for them to be helpful?
Yeah, that's good. That's a great question, actually, George. To my knowledge, it was only me and another guy. When I come back off the program, I was trying to encourage others to put in for it. But people, as I did back in the day, they sort of, I know, look, we get called lots of things: frequent flyers, doctor shoppers, therapy shoppers, and stuff like that. Well, I did all that, but it didn't work. I think sometimes people that need to be, perhaps they're what I call oven ready. They've got to go to not extraordinary lengths, but they've got to be more open to what can I do to help myself. But the thing is, with the medical model, George, it seems to take you prisoner, and you become so reliant on it, because the people, the doctors or the healthcare professionals, they're saying they're going to be doing this to you and that and whatnot. But a lot of the pain management stuff has got to be done by us. And as I say, when you're taken prisoner, if you're taken prisoner in a war or something like that, it's your obligation to escape, to get out of that medical model. And that's what I've treated my message is really over the years, to say to people, if I can do it, you can do it, but I think it's having that commitment as well. It's like a little bit like brushing your teeth, really. I know it's because everybody brushes it. Hopefully, most people brush their teeth daily. And I say to them, why do you brush your teeth? Well, get fresh breath and stuff like that. But, anything else? Well, it stops me going and see the dentist. Well, in a way, it's a little bit like self-management, really. It's you're doing something to help yourself. So, I've not dumbed it down, but I try and simplify. See, a lot of healthcare professionals, and it's nothing personal, George, to you, healthcare professionals overcomplicate stuff. And we've never been to med school. They talk to us in a language sometimes that we've never heard of before. Aided exercise and stuff like that. Well, what the hell does that mean? It's meaningless. It doesn't mean anything to us. But I agree, some people are ready to move on and some people aren't. But the main thing is that you sow the seed. At least tell people about supportive self-management. So at least they know there is somewhere to go when they think to themselves, well, I'm fed up taking all these pills, fed up doing this, that and the other. I've become sick and tired of being sick and tired. So what did that Jules say? You talked about something called the supportive self-management. Perhaps I'll give that a go now. So at least tell people about it. Because healthcare professionals say to me, when should I start talking to my patients about supportive self-management? I say, from the get-go. When you go and see a healthcare professional, you ain't getting married to them, like, it's not until death do us part. A healthcare professional really is someone like a bit of a coach, really. And so, that you're just passing on information. Just like when you was learning it, do you drive a car, George? Do you still take driving lessons?
No, I don't.
No, of course you don't. Why is that? Because you got up to required standard, and then off you go, you got yourself a little motor car. Healthcare professionals is getting people up to a standard where they feel confident to drive the car or manage their pain, etc.
Mhm.
So, do we get problems? Yeah, of course we do. People with pain, we're overdoers. We want to try and keep up with everybody else, etc. I'm still a bit like that. I'm still a bit of an overdoer, definitely an overthinker. And sometimes because we enjoy it, perhaps we're enjoying something, an activity, like when I'm doing a bit of gardening or something like that. After we put something on my phone because I lose track of time now. I've just started taking up painting, doing watercolours.
Oh, have you?
And I've definitely got, yeah. Well, I mean, I have to. I'm really got to watch myself with that because I've been to a couple of workshops, and there was like 3 hour workshops, and I didn't. It was I got so stuck into it, I didn't realise I was sitting on me sitting on my bum for 3 hours. And of course, when I went to get up, it's my legs said, "What the hell are you doing?" I just forgot. So what I've had to watch myself there that I got so engrossed in it that I just forgot about time, and I need to get up and walk around a bit more. So it's just a matter of putting a reminder on my phone, just like a little alarm, so I'll get up and move around.
And there's something in this, isn't there? I often speak to people about two things. So I think the first one is that consistency is generally key. So, like that kind of constant learning and relearning and application, because you're not always going to get it right, even if you know that it's the case. And then the second thing is that there are some things that are worth being a bit sorer for. There are some things which you are enjoying enough to throw some of those pacing strategies out of the window for. So it's if you do that all day, every day, that I think it's a problem. There are times that you should just enjoy the thing that you're doing, and that it's maybe worth a little bit of suffering afterwards for, but it's general application. It's the 80-20 thing. I thought something that you said before when I asked why you were ready to hear those messages. And when I had Keith on, he said, I don't know if I had hit rock bottom, but I think a lot of the time people have. It's like they've realized that nothing that they're doing is helping enough. As you said, you were on the NHS roundabout. I often talk to people about the NHS carousel, and people are on that carousel because it's not working adequately for them to feel better and to move forward and to feel confident to do things themselves. And it's interesting that you encouraged other people, and yet there were so few people who took it up. And, as you said, you had to travel for it. It was an 18-month wait list. They're massive barriers to people saying, yeah, I'm up for this. I'll sit on a wait list for 18 months to go and live away from home for 2 weeks. I think what's interesting is how much you've hit the ground running with it. As you said, you attended in 1996. By 1997, you weren't on medication anymore. And then it's just snowballed into all of these projects, the Pain Toolkit, the conferences, the talks.
Yeah, that was in part of my plan, George.
I was going to ask, how do you think it ended up happening? Like,
I
what
don't know.
about you made that happen?
I don't know. My battle plan was to. I was learning Italian at night school. I found out how to learn English first, actually. But I was learning Italian because my battle plan was to move to Italy because I'd been to Italy prior to all this stuff going on. I fell in love with the place, and my battle plan was to move to Italy, marry some senorina, and cook pizza for the rest of my life. And then back pain arrived, and life took me in a different direction. Like. But I mean, that's my ultimate plan. But obviously, I've ended up sitting here looking at you and talking to you,
Yeah,
and
much
other things
worse
like.
outcome than living in Italy, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but listen, there ain't no blueprint for all this stuff. Like, with people are all different. But I was reminded years ago, like, about hitting rock bottom. You haven't living with pain. It's not like everybody's got to hit a rock bottom before they move on. It's like, think of it, you're in a lift. Like, you haven't got to go right to the bottom floor, but you think before you're thinking, well, I better start learning about supportive self-management. You can get out the lift at any time. But the biggest barrier as well is that I think it is getting better. But a lot of medical schools still supportive self-management isn't still part of their learning curriculum for healthcare professionals, healthcare providers. I know that when I've talked to people in medical schools, about including it, the answer I get back is that it means they've either got to get rid of something, they haven't got the room to fit it in. But bearing in mind that most of the patients that healthcare professionals see are people with long-term pain, it seems a bit bonkers that they don't include supported or pain supported self-management within their curriculums. Yeah, I remember talking to a GP years ago, a local GP, and I said to him, "How many patients do you see every day with pain?" And he sat back in he sat back in his chair and laughed. I said, "Well, what's funny about it?" He said, "Pete," I said, "I see every other patient who's got pain." I don't think people realise how much of a problem this is. I mean, it's not when I first started doing this back in the early 90s, mid 90s. They was quoting 7.8 million people in the UK living with pain. Then in 2000 it jumped up to 14 million. And then I was at this event up at the House of Commons, and the GP said there's 28 million people with pain. I said, where's that come from? And it just seems to double every 7 or 10 years. They're still quoting a lot of organisations still quoting 28 million people in the UK living with pain. WHO, the World Health Organisation, and the International Association for the Study of Pain, they're quoting 1 in 5 people around the world living with persistent pain. So it's ain't a small matter. If you want to make a dent in it or reduce the numbers, the only way to do it is to introduce supported self-management within the med schools. But I see that. I think what sort of cheers me up is that I was talking about Keith on this last Sunday, and we watched a couple of videos or webinars from eminent healthcare professionals, and they're now not talking about the pain in the brain and whatnot. They're now saying education. You guys getting more education around talking to patients instead of sitting there prescribing or this is it, you've got to go and do these exercises and whatnot. And they're talking about now where you guys learning coaching skills and stuff, listening skills, talking skills, to teaching patients about pacing and doing meaningful movement, having a setback plan. When I hear that sort of stuff, especially these dudes there who are they really so they're eminent sort of physios and whatnot. When I hear them talking about that, and hopefully that when they go and do their conferences and whatnot, that information trickles down to people like yourself. But you're never going to get rid of it. But what you can do is slow it up. It is going to be a slow process. But as I say, 30 years ago, mate, it was pretty Fred Flintstone stuff that was being taught, or not taught anything really. It was pretty much take the pills and shuffle off.
And I think this is it. Something that you said before about the fact that actually there was nothing else. It was just take the meds. That's all we've got to offer you. And I think that's still often the approach that's taken by a huge number of healthcare professionals. And as you say, it's because of the education. But also, if there are 1 in 5 people, I don't know the exact numbers, but there are an exceedingly high number of people who are living with long-term pain conditions. It's inadequate to say we have to remove one thing to put this in, because the one thing isn't helping so many people. If there is one theme that has come up over and over again in the conversations that I've had on this podcast, it's that people started looking for other options when they realized, hang on a minute, what I'm being offered here isn't helping. It's not actually working well enough to make me feel any better. And everybody that I've spoken to, none of them are cured. None of them have a kind of full resolution of their symptoms, but they do feel like they're more in control, and they feel more in control when they've got into the driving seat and when they've recognized that the model that they're working within is not helping them. And I think the other thing that I wanted to return to that you said, I actually think the pain is in your brain idea is so misguided, because people don't want to be told this is all in your head. And it doesn't matter how much you try and kind of water it down. It doesn't matter how much you try and buffer it. Telling people that pain's in their brain when actually pain is a much more complicated experience than that involves all sorts of different factors. It kind of always baffles my mind when I hear people say pain is in the brain, because it's like, do you not realize how poorly tolerated that is by the people who are actually suffering?
There's a slide I use when I've delivered workshops in the past, and it's the my iceberg slide. An iceberg, you only see a third of the actual iceberg above water. That's why pain is only the tip of the iceberg. And below the waterline is where all of the iceberg is, the other 2/3. Your third is what you can see, that's the pain. But all the other stuff that we have to do with the sleep problems, the money worries, job worries, etc. All those problems below the waterline, after 3 months, supersede the actual pain itself. But because you present yourself to the healthcare professional, yeah, George, I've got a pain, blah, blah, blah. They're healthcare professionals, and it's not their fault. It goes back to not knowing, is that they think, well, if all these problems, this person's got sleep problems, not pacing it. They think, well, if I go for the pain all the time, so if I do give them the meds, which by the way are cheap as chips, but sometimes they need to be listening to us. But there again, they haven't got the time either because they're overstretched. But I always say, and I worked with a GP up in Sheffield years ago, and we both come to the conclusion that if you deal with that stuff below the waterline, then that will start reducing the pain itself, So if you deal with that, talk it through them about the sleep problems, not give them sleeping pills or, well, I don't know, they may have, I don't know, but they need it or not, but start learning to deal with that stuff below the waterline. That will then wind down the actual pain itself. Listen, when I've done workshops, I say, what do you want to get out of today's workshop? Because for me, it's their workshop. It ain't mine. It's their workshop. Do you know what they don't say? They don't want to talk about. They don't want to learn about pain. They want to learn how to be more mobile, get a better night's sleep. None of them talk about pain, about reducing pain, because, as I say, after 3 months, it's not the main thing. It's all the stuff they got below the waterline that's taken over from the actual pain itself.
I often say to people when I'm working with them that actually I don't tend to find that when we focus solely or primarily on the pain that we have very good outcomes. It's when you focus on the other stuff. It's when you focus on broadening someone's life. It's when you focus on self-compassion, which I think is what's underlying a lot of this pacing stuff. It's that actually you need to stop being so horrible to yourself. I must keep up with everyone else. I must maintain this no matter how much I'm struggling, no matter how fatigued I am, no matter how sore I am. It's about flexible expectations of yourself, and it's about learning new skills and new habits. And none of that stuff is about directly addressing the pain. It's about addressing the wider stuff, or in your analogy, it's about addressing the stuff that's below the surface. And when you really manage to work on all of those things, then the pain stops being the primary focus. It stops being as significant. And so you've actually done nothing in the conventional sense to work on the pain, and yet the pain is no longer the most significant thing in your life because the wider stuff around it has been worked on and has been improved. And so I really like that iceberg analogy, because the bit of the iceberg that's visible is the less dangerous bit. The bit of the iceberg that's invisible is the bit that you can't see how much of a risk it is. And it's the stuff that you really need to be cautious of.
Yeah, when I'm talking to people, I just say I can't answer for legal reasons. I can't talk to them about medication, treatments and whatnot, but I can talk about self-management. But when I say to them, well, what is your battle plan? They go, what? I said, well, what have you stopped doing that you want to get back to?
Yeah.
And they invariably say, well, no one's asked me that one before. But they start getting angry at me. Like I said, well, no, it's about getting back on track. What sort of things have you stopped doing that you want to get back to, or what new things you want to try out? You can only do that, but you've got to, I call it, play the game. Right, but you've got to do stuff to get there. So it means keeping active. It means setting goals and action plans. It's having a setback plan, doing movements that you enjoy doing. All that stuff there, you've got to do that. It's like, again, brushing your nashes each day. You've got to do it so that you don't get any tooth decay and your breath smells great. But you've got, you've got to do that stuff. Listen, do I want to get up? I'm a bit of an early bird anyway. Sometimes, as I said, I go to the gym Monday through Friday, but on Saturday and Sunday, I have a cup of tea in bed. I still do about half hour yoga or Tai Chi or whatever, exercising. See, from that, all the while I'm doing that, my life's great. If I stop doing that, I'll be the one emailing someone else saying my life's pretty crap, like, you know.
Mhm.
I like it. I mean, I like the way my life, like, you know, I adapt. Yeah, but that, I tell you what, it was a couple of years, about a year ago, down the gym. I was never a big fan of I call it the hamster wheel, you know, the treadmill. They flipped them around like if there was a technical problem with some turn around, but they was facing a wall. Yeah, holy crap, who was to do that? But anyway, so I thought, well, I ain't gonna go on that. So what I thought, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna do all my other stuff I do down there, like a few weights, a bit of Tai Chi, and you know, like I just started learning how to walk backwards, like, because that helps me leg, me knees, and
Mhm.
balance because of the cancer, the meds and whatnot. I started where I live. The gym isn't that far away from the train station, so I just go down, walk to the train station, and I have a cup of cappuccino down there, coffee. Just sit there and chill out, watching everybody get on the train, and then I walk back to the gym, in my wheels, and come home. So I'm getting my steps in, but
Mhm.
and at the same time, while I'm getting my steps in, I really enjoy sitting on the platform. In actual fact, I know it sounds a bit really bonkers, Jules, but I've made a lot of new friends down there. You know, people just started, as I was sitting on the platform, mucking around on my phone and doing a little bit of work or whatever. People started talking to me. One lady called Claire, she said, "Hello, darling." She called me, "Hello, darling. Do you want a coffee?" What? What's going on here? Like, another bloke, I saw him this morning actually. Good morning, sir. Well, I've never been called. I thought he sounded like my bank manager. You know, so, but I've actually made a group of friends down there, like, you know, just sitting there on the railway station. But to me, it's all about getting your steps in, but make your program fun. Don't make it a chore.
There's a couple of things in this. The first one is there's something really important about being willing and open to possibilities, to opportunities. Sitting, being miserable at home does not open you up to meeting someone new. It doesn't open up to finding something that you enjoy. And I know that people are really suffering, they're really struggling, and that they feel that this is what they can manage. But I think one of the things is presumably you didn't go to input and then from that day onwards went, right, I'm going to the gym this amount and I'm going to do Tai Chi that amount and I'm going to go walk and I'm going to go and people watch. It's a process, and it's a process
Yeah,
that presumably took you a
yeah.
reasonable length of time and consistency.
Yeah, I didn't go to the gym straight away because I was gymophobic because I just always feel, oh, where the pretty people go, you know, the lycra people. And I ain't got any lycra. But, I was dating a girl, like, and she sort of encouraged me a little bit. And I went a couple of times. She said to me, "Well, you come back." And she said, "When you going again?" I said, "Oh, I'll go again. I'll go again next week." I mean, I just wasn't into it, like.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden, I've got a liking for it. And I tell you what, I've got a liking. The reason why I've got a liking for it, because when I started going to the gym regularly, my pain levels drops even more. So now I thought to myself, I like this. This is right up my street. So that's what made me. That was the thing. But I didn't. Used to do all my exercises at home. But say I didn't think, but going to a gym would actually be that. But I found it more social. Say meeting more people down there. But the big gain for me, big win, was getting my pain levels dropping off a cliff. Really. So that's why I go and. I mean, what I've learned is that stretch muscles, tendons, or whatever, they feel less pain than ones that don't ain't worked. So sometimes you haven't got the gym nearby. But you know what? There's on the NHS website, they've got exercise classes on there, Tai Chi, yoga, Pilates on the NHS fitness studio, I think they call it. We can do them indoors, or there's exercise routines like Tai Chi and yoga classes on YouTube. If you live in 15, 20 floors up in an apartment block, things are at the moment, money-wise, it costs a living going up. You haven't got to go to a gym, but what you can do is watch something on YouTube or something like that, or go to the NHS website and click on their exercise programs or meaningful movement programs, and you can follow along from there. But the other thing I'll tell you, I'm lucky where I live, George, because I'm quite near a river, and nature isn't that far away. I've got like a little park up near me, so I don't know if you've heard of, you've probably heard of it, George, social prescribing.
Yeah.
Where no, I only found out recently they call it green social prescribing. Where you do a lot of using nature to help you physically, and also with your head stuff. Listen, man, when you're living with persistent pain, it likes to mess around with your head as well. Like there's no getting away from that. But to me, the more I'm out and about, it sorts my head out as well. I've got the psychiatrist I use is called my motorcycle. When I have a little session with something like, then I jump on my bike and have a bum around on that, and that's good for me, good for my head as well. So
I think there's something as well in that people are so dismissive of the idea that being out in nature could be helpful for their pain. And I think it's based in this idea, again, that your pain is really just a thing that is happening on a physical level. I remember getting a comment on a video that said something like, your pain has absolutely nothing to do with your mood. Pretty much everybody I've ever worked with can recognize that when they're experiencing more stress, or when they're lower in mood, or when they're feeling that their pain is dominating every experience that they have, and so they're not going and doing things, that they feel worse, not better. And so the idea that these things aren't helpful is one that you hear all of the time. And it's from people who are really stuck. And as you said before, they're kind of captured by the medical model. And I'm seeing a lot of stuff at the moment where people are kind of very angrily rejecting the sorts of things which seem to help. And it's really difficult, because one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast is so that I can collect in one place a large enough, the ideal is hundreds of people who are all saying slightly different and slightly similar things. Because one of the things that I've noticed about recording these so far is that actually the same things come up over and over again as to what people have found have helped, and they might be in slightly different ways. So it's not necessarily that the exact same thing helps, but there still is this. Sorry, go on.
So you got to find what works for you. There ain't no blueprint for it.
Mm-hmm.
Let's face it, George. People are at different stages of in their life. You're not going to get everybody. Some people will just self-management, pain support with self-management. It ain't going to be happening for them, and we got to accept that. A lot of people. I know someone who's had back pain longer than me. Bit of a relative, really, or ex-relative. Do you know? He knows what I do for. Yeah, do you know how many times he's rung me up for help and advice?
Less than 10.
0.
Yeah.
He just ain't into it. Like, that's okay. I'm not an ambulance chaser either. Like, he knows what I do. He knows where I am. I'd only be too pleased to help him out. But he's had back pain longer than me. Well, he might have had it 35 years or something like that. But he's still happy taking the pills. I mean, I can only repeat to you what I've heard at conferences, where the pills don't work forever. They can, after a while, taking lots of pain medication don't decrease pain, but actually they could increase it. So it's, to me, doing all me stuff, me yoga, me tai chi, walking and whatnot, getting back in the driving seat. I think that's the main thing. My main message really today, people out there are sort of struggling, is finding out things that you want to, having a plan, get yourself a coach. Someone like George, a pain self-management coach, they've got to be experienced. They've got to know what they're talking about. It's like when you're looking around for a driving instructor, you don't shut your eyes and then put a pin in the book and then say, oh, I'll go to this driving instructor. What do? Is you look around and you get people's suggestions. Look, who taught you to drive? Oh, yeah, and what was he or she like? Oh, they were really great. So you tend to be swayed towards them. So really pick a pain self-management coach and get the right, you get the right information, etc. The support is so vital as well, and get them so that you get back on track, get yourself back in the driving seat and get on with your life. But there's no set play to it. Like you're gonna need a little bit of support, a lot, to get you cracking, etc.
And a bit of trial and error. I saw something that Katie Frost, who is someone we mutually know.
Yeah.
She posted something the other day, which was about trial and error. It was about being willing to give things a go, even if you don't necessarily feel that they're going to be helpful,
Yeah,
because you
yeah,
don't know what's going to stick. You don't know what's going to help. And people find different things helpful. And so just being kind of willing to try things. And I think something that you said before about meaningful movement rather than exercise is really helpful, because ultimately, what's the point of exercise in pain management? Is it to reduce pain? For some people, it definitely does. Is it to increase participation and confidence? For some people, it definitely does. But it's about figuring out things, ideally, that feel tolerable and sustainable for you. And then also, people largely don't question brushing their teeth. They've just made it into a habit and they do it. They don't need to enjoy it. They don't need to persuade themselves to do it. It's just a thing that you do. You wake up in the morning, you brush your teeth, you go to bed, you brush your teeth. And
yeah, yeah.
finding,
Self-management.
yeah,
That's it, and the supported self-management is that it becomes a new habit. For me to get up in the morning, George, and not to do any stretches or anything like that would be really, really odd. To not do it, it's like it would be the equivalent of going out without brushing my gnashes. So it's finding what works for you. And Katie's dead right. I find out. I always remember my boss when I worked in the NHS. She said to me, you learn more from your mistakes than you do your successes. That's really stuck with me. Like I'm growing stuff, like growing tomatoes at the moment. So I always like free food. So I've been doing some experimenting and growing things from seed, etc. Some things work and some things don't. But at least I had a go. You can't go to, when you want to learn pain self-management, you can't go to a supermarket and learn it. Well, you could actually, go to the Pain Toolkit Academy. So that's what myself and a couple of other dudes, we started the academy up a couple of years ago, only because there pain management programs aren't on every street corner.
yeah, for sure.
So we started the academy so that the healthcare professionals could learn about pain supported self-management, and also people with pain could learn about it as well, and we made those super affordable, so not to put anybody off, but it's an online course. But the thing is, it's how you implement it, meaningful movement and dancing. That's exercise in itself.
For sure.
And they'll laugh at me down at the gym when there's something comes on and they play music now, and I think, oh, I'm digging this, baby, and I start, oh yeah, and I'm sort of dancing around the gym and get some moves in and whatnot. They'll start laughing at me, but to me, it's all movement, and I enjoy doing it. Like the main thing really is learning what pain management, what pain does, George. You lose your confidence, and the thing is get people back their confidence so they go from being can't do people to becoming can do people. And that's the main thing, really, and get back in the driver's seat, have a bit of fun. But as I say, you're going to need, and for anybody watching this who's living with persistent pain, George is one of these pain management coaches that you really need to. You got a website in your George?
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
Yeah, website. Go and see George's website. Go and see George. But there's a lot of other dudes out there doing the same thing. So you've got the Pain Toolkit Academy, a whole host of things. Hey, listen, they're the things that wasn't around back in my day. I sound really old when I'm saying that, but that is true. It wasn't. Pain management it was all run by a hospital, but there's no excuse for it really. If you're fed up, you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then it's just a matter of looking around, get a coach that you feel comfortable with, get a plan, start setting some goals, action plans, etc. Find out what you like to do to move it, what to do if you have a setback plan, learn some pacing activities. Pacing is a very important skill to learn so that we don't overdo things. I'll just quickly explain what pacing is, George. I mean, pacing,
Yeah, of
everybody's
course.
got a
Yeah.
little phone. Yeah, it's what has me bike, by the way, on the phone there. Who runs around with you think, look, all my battery's running down. I've got hardly any battery left. What do? You stop and you recharge it. If you're out in your vehicle, we're driving around, you look at your fuel gauge and you say, whether you're electric car or the old-fashioned engine cars, you look at it, you've got running out of battery or running out of fuel. I better find somewhere to stop and refuel. So that's pacing in a way. So what you're doing in pacing with pain management terms is stopping before you think you need to. So first off, you've got to find out, well, how much juice have you got in your tanks? What's your baseline? How far can you walk or move before your pain starts or increases? And then you chop it in half, halfway through, just stop, take a break, and then carry on doing it. And not like me, when you pace yourself, you're taking a break before you think you need to. You can do more throughout the day, but without increasing your pain or your symptoms. Like yesterday, I was washing my van down. Back in the day, I've got to wash it down, and then wax it. What that do? That just made me super tired. Pain levels shoot up and everything. So I've got a nice clean motor, but my pain levels have gone through the roof. But now I just like yesterday, I'll just give it a bath, and I might pop out there later on or tomorrow and give it a little bit of a wax over or something like that. So it's doing things in different ways, but we can find that by breaking things up into little segments, we can actually do more without increasing our pain or our symptoms. It goes for when you're living with long-term conditions. People we're overdoers, but pacing our daily activities will allow us to do more. And because we're overdoers, that's why we need a setback plan. So if we do overdo it, instead of going or jumping into bed for a couple of days, you think, you just cut all your activities down by half, and then increase them slowly, a little bit at a time. So you keep yourself going.
I think this is what people get wrong about pacing so often, is that it is not just cutting down all of your activities and cutting down all of your activities and cutting down all your activities. It's that you're trying to reduce the intensity of things. I talk to people all the time about, instead of doing things at 100%, if you do 2 lots of 55%, then you've potentially done 110%. So you're actually accomplishing more by doing slightly less intensity. And what you said before about finding your baseline and then building it up, that's where I think so many of the approaches to pacing go wrong, is that people miss out that the point of this is to reach a point where you feel comfortable to begin to gradually increase things. It is not just to reduce and then just to reduce more. And I think people get that wrong quite often. And the other thing that I wanted to return to is I really like that analogy, because very few people let their fuel tank go empty. Very few people let their car go down to 0% battery or their phone go down to 0% battery. And yet we do this to ourselves so often. And as you say, people push themselves. They strive to keep up with things. They strive to be what they perceived was the way that they managed things before they had pain. I don't let my camera battery go down to 0 before doing something about it. And
there you go.
It's just baffling that we take that approach to ourselves. I need to do everything until I'm wrecked and then take days or weeks to recover after I've flared up.
So we look after our cars and our batteries and all that more. Especially you've got the electric cars. You've got you've got to plan your journey, because not planned. You've got to find out where can I reduce. You don't want to get captured. Run out of electric. Battery power. So get stuck on a motorway. It's all about planning, prioritising, and pacing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think this is it. Is ultimately that planning element is something that I think a lot of people really struggle with, because it's removing the spontaneity from the way that they lived their life before pain. I was having a conversation with someone recently about trying some things to improve their sleep. And I said, look, I'm going to hold my hands up and say, this stuff's a pain in the bum, because it's completely changing the way you do things. But it's a pain in the bum that might be worth trying.
Yeah, sleep's that's one of the questions I get. Well, people tell me about sleep, and then they don't get a good night's sleep. And even now, George, I still have problems sleeping. I feel like I'm a bit of a bit like a barbecue, So I start off from one side, and then my hips start to my hip pain will wake me up, and I've got to flip over. That was the thing I had to deal with over the years. Also, living with prostate cancer, your bladder goes into meltdown night constantly. Was it the other night? I thought myself, bloody hell, I might as well just sleep in the loo. It was like it's like I needed a kidney break felt like every hour. So that interrupts your sleep. I think that people with pain, people with long-term conditions, we do have sleep problems.
Absolutely.
But the thing is as well, what I found out, so you got problems sleeping, and so the pain will wake you up, or your long-term condition will wake you up. So how do you get back to sleep? Well, I learned a little skill years ago. The technical term for it is called diaphragmatic breathing, but it's called, to the layperson, like you and me, it's called belly breathing. So when I do wake up in the night, or and to get myself back to sleep, I do belly breathing. You can look it up on YouTube. And I use it every night so that I'll get back to sleep as quick as. So I'm not sitting there or laying there wondering, well, what's happening? My brain, like the engine room, sort of wants to take off, start thinking about stuff, and I can't let that happen. So when I do belly breathing, I'll get back to sleep really, really quick. That's something I had to learn. I don't know how many years ago. I think I learned that about 15, 20 years ago, but it's really saved my bacon, so I can get back to sleep as soon as. I still have sleep is still waking up in the middle of the night, it's still a problem now. But hey, that's it's life. I'm not going to worry about it. I'm not going to go down and get me some sleeping pills and all that. So that's happening. So what can I do about it? This is the attitude I have now. So this is coming along. What can I do about it rather than dialing the GP number? I might as well live in as I've become an older person. Sometimes, sometimes you feel like you're living there, you're having frequent tests and whatnot. That's part of the game. It's part of being older, getting older. But you get people, lot younger people now, getting sorts of different pains, like juvenile arthritis and stuff like that. So they get pains as well. I think sometimes in the pain management world, we forget about our younger people. Pain always seems to be associated for old people like myself, or in their mid years.
Yeah.
Younger people do get pain issues. I did years ago. I adapted the Pain Toolkit. Funny enough, it was with a young clinical psychologist, but she helped me noddy up the Pain Toolkit for younger people. There's even there's courses for those guys now. Pain management programs down in Bath. I think they run pain management programs down there for younger people.
Mm-hmm.
And myself and Keith Meldrum, what we've done, we've adapted the Pain Toolkit over the years. We've co-written the prehab Pain Toolkit. So if you're waiting for a procedure or operation, what can you do? Like the people say, well, I'll have me up and then I'll have rehab. Well, why don't you just learn some rehab before the procedure, so you haven't got to worry about too much about the rehab? So what can you do before preparing your body like for that operation or procedures? Yes, yeah. So we've adapted the toolkit for people with neuropathic pain. I do two versions, one for UK and Canada, and I think the Aussies wanted their own one, so we had to do another lot of videos for the do an Aussie version, Australian version. I adapted years ago. Adapted the Pain Toolkit for people that are in offenders institutions. There is a big issue with long-term pain in prisons or offender institutions, as I have to call it. So the Pain Toolkit's been translated into loads of different languages. I think it's about 14. I couldn't pay for all the translation myself. Organisations were kind enough to pay for it, but it's an international problem. It ain't a Western problem. So
definitely doesn't have a single language that unifies it.
it doesn't have no borders, but and I think we adapted it once last year with a GP up in Bradford for people with from the Islamic community. People use I didn't know this until I had a chat with him last year, that people that use their faith as a way of managing pain. So he did all that sort of that side of it, but we tweaked a bit of the Pain Toolkit for those people, like I say, who use their faith. I've tried to, over the years, support people in different ways. That's one thing I'm always trying to do. When VR come around, virtual reality. Funny enough, this is a funny story, George. A friend of mine in Australia told me about a Japanese doctor who was using a virtual reality site to promote pain management to his patients. Like, built some different rooms on there, and I was running workshops in virtual reality. The good thing about it is that you didn't need a headset. You normally have to wear a goggles. It's great if you can wear a pair of VR goggles, I suppose. But
Yeah.
you can go onto the site with your phone or your laptop or your computer. But I pop into it from time to time, and I often see groups of people in there just chatting about their pain. There's loads of information, like a gallery that they can walk around. And a couple of years ago with Teesside University, we did a an AI version of myself. I had to sit in a chair for 2 days and answer. I think it's about just about 440 questions. I had to talk about myself, about pain, self-management, and the Pain Toolkit. It was organised by or recorded by a company over in Los Angeles. I think it's still on the internet somewhere. But you can go on there and you can just click on. There's some pre questions on there, or you could. This is a smart bit. You could hit the microphone and ask me any questions you like, and apparently I would answer you in some way. Or if I didn't know, if it was a bit of a bonkers question, I'd say, sorry, I don't know the answer to that. I'm always looking for a way how do we engage people, George. I think that's me, you, and other coaches, self-management coaches, that's what we need to be doing, is looking for ways, how do we engage people, especially the older person perhaps, because this is where a lot of people live with pain and long-term conditions. But also remember our younger generations, we've got the social media, because it's where people get their information from these days. The main thing for you people out there who do promote self-management is just keep the information really simple. Remember, as I had to be reminded last year, excuse me, the reading age, not just here in the UK, but the reading age for people around the planet is between 11 and 12. Information's got to be really simple. The main thing with coaching is ask people, how do they learn? Do they learn from watching, listening, doing, through practice, or perhaps a combination of all three or four?
Yeah, it's about
And then
adapting.
being a good coach means that you've got resources there to signpost people to. So, because people learn in different ways. But when you're living with pain or a long-term condition, our attention span is pretty low. It's like, I think it's like the attention span of a flea. So that's...
Pete, we've spoken about agency as a really core thing, learning that you need to do things for yourself, got to play the game. You have to do the thing. You can't just hear the thing. Also, the learning skills and the consistent application of the skills in self-management, and also about innovative approaches to get people on board. And I think there's been lots of really valuable points made. Is there anything else that you want people living with pain to hear, or is there anything else that you haven't had a chance to say that you really want to discuss?
The main thing really is to find someone like George, a coach. You could say to George, I want to learn how to self-manage. How are we going to do that? You, George, will set out a plan that both of you like. Someone they can check in with you from time to time. The main thing is to get back on track, set goals, action plans. So you set a goal and then your action plan. Well, how am I going to achieve that goal? I always say to people, make your first goals fun.
Yeah, that's a
So
great
you get
shout.
the hang of it. And the main thing with self-management, make it fun, not like a course of treatment and stuff like that. The thing is that the more you get into it, the more you'll enjoy it, and as you'll find that your confidence will return, and just try things out, and you think to yourself, "Oh, blimey, that wasn't so bad. Oh, blimey, right, yeah, that's really good, yeah. Well, let's try something else now." And it's like when you learn to drive. Back in the day, I used to be a driving instructor, but when I used to get pupil for the first time, you're sitting there getting there and they're thinking, they're in the car, they're nervous as hell. So what we used to do is move off and stop a couple of times. And they move off and then they go up the road a little bit and then they stop. And they look at you and thinking, hey, look, I'm still alive. And then you do that again. So the confidence, and then you start turning left. And then you get confident doing that. And then you start turning right. So really learning how to manage your pain or your long-term condition. It's about starting off small steps, the small baby steps. But you're going to need someone like George to not hold your hand, but be there to support you. Be like your driving instructor, really. You're driving a car, you're in charge, and George is there to support you in your journey. Hey, listen, but the main thing is, you ain't getting married to George, all right? It's not at all death or as part of relationships. It's there. And at some point, you're thinking, well, yeah, okay, George, I'm good to go here, and off you go. But you know where he is. If you get any hiccups at all, you can always refer back to him. But the main thing, some fun. Don't be frightened about stuff. Will you muck up? Yeah, but that's part of the learning process as well. But that's where your tools come in, see? So if you've overdone it, we're overdoers, overthinkers. You got your setback plan to fall back to. But have fun. That's what I try and do every day. So when sort of adversity comes along, like at the gym, turning the treadmills around the hamster wheel, facing the wall, I thought, I ain't doing that. I thought, well, I'll start going up and I want to turn my walks into fun. So I'm out in the fresh air. I'm not in the gym. I'm now getting fresh air, walking up the station, having a coffee. Hey, then did I think I was going to make some new friends? No, I didn't. But I've got some really nice new buddies now, like trying new things out. I'm meeting new people, making new friends again. But I'm having fun, and that's what life's all about, isn't it? We enjoy life and not endure it. But so we're going to need a few skills to learn along the way. So take home messages. Find George. Get him to coach you and get out there and have a bit of FUN. Fun.
Absolutely. I think the fun is something that's missing all the time. Enjoyment. People who are living with pain, they're not enjoying things. The approaches that are being taken to treat and to support people with pain, they're not about increasing joy. They're not about increasing enrichment. They're not about increasing participation. That's not always the case by any means, but I think that's definitely a really key point, is that actually pain takes so much away from people, and we need to try and figure out how to get back to that. Pete, that's really great. Thank you so much. If you'd like to find more information out about Pete and the projects that he's involved in, I'll leave some links in the show notes. Thanks, Pete, and thanks for listening to the Conditions for Recovery podcast. I'm George, and I'll see you in the next one.